Hey, it's Jackie. My podcast, The Natural Healing Reel, features guests from all over the world. They're sharing their stories of natural healing modalities. My intention on the show is to aid people with alternative ways in healing, physically, mentally, and emotionally. This podcast recognizes the essential role that mainstream medicine plays in our daily lives, and in no way should this be taken as medical advice. Please seek the advice of a competent medical professional for your care as you see fit, and most importantly, take care. My guest today is from Cleveland, and she's an amazing healer, and she is going to share a wealth of her knowledge of how to cleanse and feed and be aware of what is going on around us and how to keep our body in balance. Hello, Courtney. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You are a huge animal lover, so love that.
Yes, I am. I love me some critters, definitely.
Hence feeding the little squirrel before we start.
The squirrel's outside. I got a bearded dragon over here, and my dog is sleeping on the chair.
Are you kidding? I love that. I love that. So you're a student of the body.
Yes.
Explain that to me. Tell me how your journey actually started with this whole awakening to the awareness of what's really going on inside of us.
So I grew up eating whatever I wanted. You know, my favorite meal still is, a burger and fries and a milkshake. Right. But that's just something that, I ate whatever I wanted. I never really gave it much thought. And, in my early 20s and that, I was modeling. That's what I did for work. And I just, continued to eat what I wanted because I could. And I knew at some point that was going to catch up to me. And there were girls that I would work with that were, 10 years older than me that were still making a good living as a model. And I was like, I want to make sure that that's me. And so I knew that, at some point, everyone told me it would catch up to me. And I knew that I needed to make sure that I kind of had a plan. And I thought, well, maybe I should start working out. That's what everybody's doing. And, maybe that's the route I should go. And once I started in the gym, I discovered that I really, really loved it. And I changed my body. And there are so many benefits from physical activity, aside from the physical aspects of it, the mental health aspects, the emotional health aspects of it. And, once I realized that something so simple could have such a big impact, I just kept going. So then I became a health coach. I have multiple nutrition certifications. And as I started working with clients, I realized that, especially, when I see them in the gym, some of them, 3 times a week, I realized that they see me more than they see their doctor. And they would come to me with their ailments and be unsatisfied with the care or lack thereof that they were given. And I felt bad because, I work with a lot of older clients. They would be in pain and, struggling with whatever. And I just decided I wanted to learn more. And that's what took me down the road of functional medicine and then, holistic iridology, because you could see, into the body and, generations back by looking at the anterior surface of the eye. And that's something that is so fascinating to me because that is
Talk about
every eye is different. So, it's like your fingerprints. And interestingly, this is a nice little tidbit. Everybody has blue eyes. And underneath whatever color your eye appears to be is blue. And if your eye is brown, then ultimately you just have a heavy melanin pigment that is over your blue eye. And if you have hazel or green, then you just have a mixture of blue and that melanin pigment. And so, you could see a lot about someone's constitution. You could see 5 generations back plus, of genetic predispositions. The left side or the left eye comes from the maternal side, and the right eye is the paternal side. So you could see what side your genetic predispositions come from in that regard. You can see genetic predispositions for digestive issues and It's basically, you could see weaknesses by the trabecular structure of the eye. If you see openings in those things and how deep they go, you can see weaknesses in organ systems and things like that. So it's just been something that, if you can get a handle on something that you've perhaps been exposed to, then it's a wonderful thing to know that you have control of being able to heal your body. And ultimately, this is one of the most interesting things, is every ailment starts with an emotion, and it's an emotional issue that causes a physical problem in the body. And those are things that you can even see in the eye. And babies can be born with predispositions. Obviously, a baby isn't going to have lymphatic congestion. That's really not something a baby is going to be born with, but you can see the predisposition for it in the eye. And so it's just something that you can, keep an eye on, but no pun intended. But it's been a very, very fascinating journey and super, super fun. And, the more you learn about the body, the more you just have to be in awe of what it can do, for better or worse for us. But it basically will do what we ask it to do if we treat it properly.
I totally agree, 100%. I've so learned that. And the emotional thing, and that's generational, is what I've learned as well. Clearing patterns and old stories and generational not enoughs, right? It's pretty incredible, isn't it?
It is.
That's awesome. I would like to have that done. I think that that would be really beneficial for me.
If I can get a clear enough picture of your eye, if somebody's local to me, there's a place, there's a salon where I have a microscope set up with a digital camera, and I can get a really, really close-up picture of someone's eye. I'm not very good with screen sharing on here, so I can show it to you later, but I'm not sure you want me to try to navigate through that right now. But I can show you some iris photographs. And when I first started to study it, it was so mesmerizing just looking at different eyeballs, because they're just so unique and so incredibly beautiful. And the things that you can see in someone's eyes it's really remarkable.
And I learned that the eyes are part of the nervous system. I learned that from Andrew Huberman. He's I don't know if you know who he is, but
no system in the body works alone. Everything in the body works in conjunction with everything else. And so when you think about traditional medicine and you go to a specialist for something, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. However, everything in the body works together. And that's something that, I've learned, especially working with the musculoskeletal system as a trainer. A lot of people with back problems, they say they have back pain, and they do have back pain, but their pain isn't originating in their back. It's starting in their hamstrings and their glutes. And so, helping people understand how to take care of their body and that everything's connected, and they have to work downstream a lot of times to find the origin of the issue and to correct it. It helps kind of open people's minds, because we weren't really raised to take care of our bodies or to take care of our health. You're raised, do whatever you want. And when you don't feel good, you go to the doctor, he writes you a prescription, you need to take that, and you feel better, and then you move on. But being healthy really takes effort. It takes work to be healthy.
Yeah, you're so right with that. We have not been educated on our bodies or how we are, how we work in this whole energy field of the universe. Like, how are we connected? I think I grew up my whole life thinking that we were the only ones in the world, like in the universe. Do you know what I mean? Because I think that's what we didn't know about anything else, but it's the furthest thing from the truth. And it's fascinating, that all of it. I'm with you. It's just, the more you start to learn about it, the more it's like, wow. So
there's rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole.
Right? Yes, I've been down many. Sometimes I've stayed down the rabbit hole for a while until you realize that you're there and pop back up eventually.
Right.
Thankfully, the holes have gotten less and less. Right. But that's with awareness and understanding and knowledge. Right. And so understanding the emotional blockages. Right. So do you believe that those are generational as well? And then
100%. Yeah, you could see you could see those things in somebody's eyes. I mean, when I photograph somebody's eyes to do a reading, I don't know anything about them. I take some pictures. I ask them if there's anything specific they want me to look for, if they're concerned about anything. But then I come home and I, look at the images, make sure that I have, some that are viable because, I'm trying to hurry up and get them, through the microscope and the whole thing. But once I blow them up, I want to make sure that they're clear. And then I just dive in, and it's interesting. Like, I can see sometimes patterns of abuse, and things like that. Somebody has had like difficulty with communication. Sometimes you can see if there's been a difficult birth. You could see all sorts of interesting things. And it's fascinating, when I'm talking to someone, and again, I don't know these things about them because I don't know them. I just tell them this is what I see. There's a potential for, or it looks like, and because iridology is not diagnostic. And, they just kind of look at me like, well, how did you know that? Or, yes, this has been happening on this side of the family, or I've had to deal with this, or, whatever the case may be. And, it's still amazing to me because, I mean, our bodies tell us everything, and our bodies don't forget. Everything that happens to us gets stored in our body. And that's where, disease can come into play. And every organ system in the body is connected to an emotion. And so if you start to look at, different emotions and the organ system that it corresponds with, you can sometimes see where somebody struggles, if they're struggling, to forgive someone, if they have anger issues, things like that. And, there's people that certainly don't believe any of this, and that's fine. But I've seen,
did they call you crazy?
Well, yeah, sometimes. Yeah. Oh, I get called all sorts of things, but it's fine. But I mean, it's not for everybody, I mean,
but if there's a tool out there that gives you information on how to help yourself to have a better life, to have a more, vibrant, healthier, happier life, why wouldn't you be interested? Right? If it doesn't ring true to you and then I get that. But I don't understand why people are so closed. I guess it's fear. It's fear.
Well, I think there's that aspect of it. And, you're in Canada, I'm in the US. They are very much trying to tell us what we should think and believe and feel. And when you get into that, some people kind of have fallen for it, hook, line, and sinker, I guess. And if you believe the way they want you to believe, a medical doctor is the only person that can help you. And they're very knowledgeable. They're certainly valuable and have their place in health and healing. But we also have a place in our own health and healing. And most medical schools teach very, very little. I think it's about 9 hours, I've heard, of nutrition training. And food is medicine or food is poison. What you put in your body sends signals to every cell, and it tells your body how to respond. So are you giving it a good signal or a bad signal? And, I've had people come to me that have been diagnosed with cancer, talking about their treatments and things like that. And they ask me about nutrition, and I start telling them, don't eat this, you should eat more of this, whatever. And they say, well, I asked my doctor and he said I could eat whatever I wanted. And they're encouraging them to eat poor quality, low nutrient foods. And that's not good. And sugar feeds cancer. And they're being told that it's okay to eat things with sugar. And, and I realize that cancer treatments are no easy, way to go. I mean? It's not an easy road. And sometimes you're going to want to reward yourself with something. But if you're rewarding yourself with something that is potentially slowly killing you, you might want to think twice about it. But if people don't know that, they can't make the change. And I truly believe that most people want to do what's best for their bodies. They really want to make the right decisions. They just simply don't know what that is. There's a lot of misinformation out there. If you walk through the grocery store and you read the food labels or you read the boxes, it says fortified with, blah, 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 this is added. It's all nonsense. Those things are not whole food additives. or fortifiers. And so if you are fortifying with something synthetic, your body can't assimilate it. So you're going to get very little, if any, of that. So it's all nonsense. We need whole foods and we need good quality foods. We need organic and grass-fed beef. And, you think about what the animal ate. If you're eating animal products, you're eating what they ate. And, I'm not going to eat a cow that was eating, grain or, grass or whatever that's covered with glyphosate. I'm not doing it. So, it matters what we put in our bodies, and I'm not a perfect eater. I like my sugar. I definitely have a sweet tooth. But I try to, keep that somewhat moderate. And when it comes to my whole foods, I will not compromise. I'm not eating, meat that's not organic and grass fed. My produce is all organic. I have my water distiller is going right now. I distill my own water at home. I will not drink out of the tap.
How do you distill your own water?
I just bought a distiller. It takes 4 hours to distill 1 gallon of water. And I just plug it in and let it go. And if you have ever done it or seen it, and you look at the bottom of the distiller afterwards, what's in the bottom of there? That was in your water. I mean, I don't know if
it's like that charcoal. I can't remember the name of it. It was like a silver big can, and then you got to wash out. Oh my God, it's so sick. What's in there? And this is what we're drinking. Right. And so I'm like, how is that's okay?
And that's just it. Every cell in our body needs hydration. And when it comes down to the most basic thing that your body requires, if that thing has toxins and chemicals and pollutants in it, you're starting at ground zero, polluting your body. And again, most people just don't know because, here, a couple weeks ago, I don't know if you've heard about it in Canada, we had that massive train derailment. It's about 50 miles from me. And they set up that toxic cloud of poison, and thousands of fish are dying, domestic animals are dying, farm animals are dying. Mainstream media will not talk about it. Our department secretary of whatever transportation guy took him 3 weeks to get here because he wouldn't even come breathe this air. And I can guarantee you he didn't drink any of the water while he was here. So,
wow,
all these things are kind of shoved under the rug. And I think it's, for people who are interested in clean water, I don't know if you could do this in Canada, but for people who are in the United States, the Environmental Working Group can tell you what's in your water. So you can go to ewg.org. Up in the right-hand corner, you can click, it'll say water. Okay. And there'll be a drop-down menu there. And you can plug in your zip code and where your water source is. You can click on it if you know. And sometimes like cities will have a few different ones. You can click on all of them. And it will tell you what's in your water. And once you look at that, you will not drink your water. It doesn't matter what they tell you. There's, in my water here, there's more than 600 times some cancer-causing chemicals that are in the water. And, that's not counting the pharmaceuticals that get flushed down the toilet and, the hormonal, things that are in the water. So they're not testing for everything, but they're certainly testing for more than the municipalities are. And once you find out that that's what you're drinking and that's what you're giving your body, this water distiller cost me $160. It's well worth it.
Oh, goodness. Yes.
$160 is nothing if you're normally drinking bottled water or getting some kind of filter or, something like that anyways. It's well worth it to me. I don't drink out of plastic. I don't, I drink out of glass or stainless. And it was a transition, but the idea is the more you can lower your toxic body burden, the better you're going to become, because ultimately, as we get older, those things just accumulate. Our body can't get rid of all of it. Our livers get overburdened. That's why so many people have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That's really been on the rise over the last couple of decades. And, people are saying, but I don't drink, but you don't have to anymore. There's so many toxins that our livers are getting overburdened. And so people who don't drink are starting to have liver problems because of that.
Do you know much about, I was told I have lots of heavy metals and I know that I've had that throughout the years, and I've had where I've been places and I've taken it, whatever, to cleanse it out, but it's back again. I wonder if it's coming from the water, because it's not just myself, my daughter has it too, right? So it's like,
yeah, there's a number of places. So some of the biggest sources for heavy metals depending on what they are, if you've tested for them, one of the best ways to test is the hair mineral test, because they're not that easy to excrete. So it'll come out through the hair. So you can take a hair sample and send that in, and they'll look at it that way. So the HTMA tests are usually the best to go for something like that. Because if you do a blood test for heavy metals, it's not great, because if they're in your circulation and they're high, you're very toxic, because your body will do what it can to sequester heavy metals. So they'll get put into bone and tissue and things like that, because your body's going to pull them out of the blood. So if your levels are high on a blood test, you're sick potentially. But they will just continue to accumulate in the body, and the body will pull them out, so they'll come out in the hair. They'll be stored in bone. They can be stored in the brain. That can be, a cause for brain fog and dementia, a contributor for things like that. But yeah, so when it comes to heavy metals, sauna is a great way. Infrared sauna is a great way to get rid of a lot of things.
I have one of those, and it just sits there.
Yeah, I have one upstairs, and I love my sauna. I was in it today. But one of the best things you could do is take a binder before you get in the sauna.
Do you know what we got like the tent? I think that's why I don't do it that often, but it's not the same as the actual sitting in the sun. Do you know what I mean? I guess, but
I have a Sunlight and Solo, and I lay in that, and without fail, I can take a nice little nap. I put on some nice, like whatever, I think it's like 528 hertz, like a healing, music. And I hop in there. But one of the things that you need to do if you're going to get in the sauna is take a binder, because you will release toxins when you get in the sauna, and as your body starts to sweat, especially if you're in infrared sauna, because it heats your body differently. It's kind of like inducing a fever. And then you can take a binder and it will help to absorb some of those things. But all binders are not created equal. So you want to take a specific binder for what you're trying to absorb. And then when you get out of the sauna, shower immediately or towel off, because you don't want to reabsorb what's come out in the sweat.
Explain to me what a binder is.
A binder is kind of a chelator. So there are things in the body that are water soluble. There are things that are fat soluble. So when you sweat, the things that are water soluble are going to be the easiest to come out. Those are things you can urinate out. But for example, people will sweat to lose weight, kind of thing, right? So if you can break open those fat cells, that's can be a reason why people have a hard time losing weight. If your diet is really, really on point, your body can be harboring some toxins and it doesn't want to release them because your body's using fat as a protective mechanism. So once you break open those fat cells, now you've got those things circulating in the body, which is why when people are doing keto, a lot of times for the first time, and they're saying, "Oh, I feel like crap," and they have the keto flu.
Okay,
that can be what that is. As their body is starting to use ketones, use fat for fuel, and it's breaking open those fat cells, you're releasing toxins in the body, and those things are starting to circulate, and people feel like crap, and that's why. So I've had clients do that, and then I just, I'm like, I ran a binder over to her house. I'm like, "Here, take this." 2 hours later, she felt fine. She's like, "Oh my God." And it's basically just because you've got toxins circulating. So you want something that will grab those things on and shuttle them out of the body. So when I do detoxes and cleanses and stuff with people, one of the first things we need to do is make sure drainage is open. They need to be able to sweat. They have to be going to the bathroom, number 2, every day. And I've got things that can help them go if they're not. But that's a big, big reason for people to be unwell, because if you're trying to release the things in the body that shouldn't be there, they've got to have an escape route. And if they don't, then they're just going to get reabsorbed and recirculate. And that's really not helping them get better. So, we want to get those things out and make sure that once they start moving, they go all the way out.
So if somebody was wanting to do this, right, they could get on your website and contact you. And on your website, do you have like information on binders, or like, do you have this kind of information, or is it best to individually chat with you to kind of figure out where they're at and what's best for them?
Yeah, because there's different binders for different things. And so it depends on what they're trying to accomplish. There really isn't a one size fits all. People a lot of times will say activated charcoal, but that's not something that I use. The binders that I use are more discriminatory. Activated charcoal will kind of grab onto everything, including your nutrients, which means if you ate a really nice nutrient dense organic salad And then, 30 minutes later, you took a binder because you're going to get in the sauna in an hour. That binder just took all your nutrients. So, yeah. So you have to be careful with what you take, not because it's bad, but you need to make sure that it's taken. Something like that has to be taken away from food. They don't all work that way. Some are more discriminatory, but activated charcoal is one that will just jump onto whatever is there and take it out. And so, if you're doing like let's say you're doing a water fast or something like that. Okay, well, you could take activated charcoal because, you don't have any nutrients for it to steal. But, you want to be careful and take a binder that is geared towards what you're trying to eliminate, if you even know what that is, because that's another thing. If somebody's chronically, fatigued and brain fog and things like that, then I'll run labs to find out what's in their body that we're trying to get rid of. Mold is a big one. It's actually a really, really big one. I
think that would be big here in the West Coast where we live, because it is humid, and like a lot of the houses there's mold in them. If you don't have a brand new house, it's yucky.
Well, even new houses, because they're open during construction and it rains and then they get closed up. So, it doesn't necessarily matter the age of the home. It matters how it's been cared for, really. And if anybody is even aware that mold is a problem, and that's just it. I mean, until I got into functional medicine, I didn't know. It's not something I would have thought twice about. I've been in real estate for 16 years. I'd walk into a house this morning, I'm like, I'm healthy. I don't care about any of that. It doesn't faze me. There's like black fur on the walls. And I don't think twice about it because I've always been healthy. But there are people who are very, very sensitive to stuff like that. And now, you could see it on lab tests. I can run a simple, urine test, send it to the lab and find out, if there's different types of mold or mycotoxins in the body, because mold and mycotoxins are different, but they're related. Sometimes it's going to be.
What about calcium?
I'm sorry?
I was told that I have calcium deposits around my heart.
So what did they tell you to do for that?
Well, it's like kind of like a program that I was kind of sharing before. It's like the Averio clinic, and they feed you, so it's like food, vitamins, and then they're putting you through kind of treatment where it's.
Is it for that?
Well, they kind of look at your whole body, and then I kind of spent a week there, but I'm going back for another week, but they're kind of feeding you, they're vitamining you, and then you're going through, there's like 20 different treatment rooms that are, they're adjusting your nerves, and then there's cupping, and there's Reiki, and there's just all kinds of, I can't even tell you all the different rooms. It's all about realigning the spinal column. And
that's huge, because if your body's not in alignment, chances are you're not going to function optimally. And that's ultimately what we all want. The one thing I would say about that is, do you take any supplements on a daily basis? You should probably be taking vitamin D3 with K2. You take those two together.
It's really important, isn't it? I've read a lot about that.
When you take those two together, it helps pull the calcium out of the blood and redeposit it into the bones. So it helps to, potentially keep your arteries a little bit clearer, so you have fewer calcium deposits. Because they work synergistically, because you don't want the calcium floating around. You want it to be in the bones to keep the bones strong.
Yeah. I was like, whoa, that doesn't sound good. There was all kinds of things that didn't sound good, but a couple of really bad concussions and all kinds of other stuff of a lifetime, right? But
yeah, well, that's just it. We've all been through something, I mean, none of us make it through this life unscathed.
No. And really grateful that I, have these amazing guests that I get to go in and have, the treatments or the information that you guys are sharing, because I'll tell you what, when I went through that program, just the nutrients, like what you're talking about, the food and just kind of starting your body back up, it's powerful. And I don't know that as a society that we're given any of the information that we really should be given at all. Like what you're saying, it's just not in the mainstream. It's just, it's talked about, we know, but nobody's really knowing the value and the importance of, let's do that instead of, getting our kids to 10 different things. And do you know what I mean? Like, let's, I don't know. It's such, it's an incredible feeling when your body starts to work.
Yes. Yes. And everybody's individual. That's part of it is, a lot of the regular kind of medical model is these are your symptoms. This is the drug you get. And unless you have side effects, then this is what you take. But our bodies are all so individual. What we've been through is different. Our genetic composition is going to vary. And, as far as, somebody might have a deficiency in this gene and somebody else might have a deficiency in this gene. Well, that can determine how you respond to a medication. And some of those things don't even happen right away. And that's really a big thing that a lot of people miss and that, doesn't get talked about is, so for example, statins are not, in my opinion, a very dangerous drug.
And you can never get off them, apparently. You get on those and then that's a lifer.
But you should never be on them. That's just, you should never be on them. I have not seen a study that really shows that they have extended anyone's life, prevented any heart attacks or anything like that. I mean, ultimately, there's a side effects with muscle aches and things like that. And part of the issue with them is that statins leach CoQ10 out of the body. Well, our bodies need CoQ10 and it leaches it over time. So that's where somebody might take a statin and they're like, oh, I didn't have any of these side effects that people are talking about with these muscle aches and whatever. But it could be 6 months, it could be 3 years down the road. And then they start to not feel so good. And they go back to the doctor, well, I'm having this or I'm having that. And then that correlation is never made because it took time for it to leach it from the body and you weren't replenishing it because you didn't know. And so then the correlation is not made that this drug could have caused this problem. Yeah. And if that correlation is not made, now all of a sudden this person is given another drug because now they have muscle aches or they have this or they have that. You know what I mean? So it's that cascade of polypharmacy where now you are taking this drug and you're taking this drug and you're taking this drug. And they're going to, every pharmaceutical is going to shunt a pathway somewhere. They're going to block something in order to help something else. And once you start to shut things down in the body somewhere, everything works synergistically. So if you stop a pathway here, everything downstream from that is going to be disrupted. So of course something is going to happen. And, granted, herbs and supplements can do some of those things as well. However, they're usually going to be much safer, which doesn't mean you should just start taking all sorts of things. I mean, where it's, indicated, you should be taking, some labs to find out if you actually need this or that. But, the arbitrary number of 200 for your cholesterol is just that, it's arbitrary. And some people got together and decided, well, this is the number that we're going to use. But women especially are fine with a higher cholesterol number of 240, 250. And it's not considered to be dangerous. And oftentimes that's who lives longer are these people that have a little bit higher cholesterol, because cholesterol is ultimately a marker of inflammation in the body. So if it's too high, okay, if it's 300 or over, then let's figure out what's going on. But this thought of, I guess artificially lowering it through a statin is not good either, because cholesterol is a precursor to all your hormones. So when you see these guys with a cholesterol of 150 or 160 and the doctor saying, let's get it lower, let's get it lower, let's get it lower. Why? And these are the same guys that are now having erectile dysfunction and all sorts of other issues because they don't have enough cholesterol to produce testosterone, because cholesterol leads into all of your other hormones. And if you don't have enough, well, now what? And so now they're going to be taking, some testosterone cream or supplement or something else. And these are things that oftentimes were not necessary. If they just got in the gym and moved a little more and maybe cut out pop or soda or whatever, and made a couple diet changes, they don't need any of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and we've all heard the Band-Aid effect, right? And so just listening to you, you can just hear that, how damaging that is, right? Because you're putting something on something that's not fixed.
Right.
Right. You're just kind of doing something to it that you don't even know how it's affecting everything else.
Right.
And then that's why we have parents that have the box load of all the pills, right? At the end of it. And all we do know is that we have to take it because we don't know, we're scared, right? Because we've been brought up with a medical doctor with medication, and without having the knowledge or knowing somebody who, like yourself, who they can go, okay, well, what, like, and then having somebody explain it, and it just takes all of that fear out of it. But when people don't know, they are fearful. And so they just take it.
Right. And I don't know everything. I mean, I'm far from knowing everything. No, but I know enough to be dangerous.
Will you ever? No.
Yeah, but no, of course not.
Information is huge.
Yeah. And that's one of those things that before I started down this road, I was one of those people that I was like, all right, well, something's wrong. I go to the doctor. And I remember, however long ago, 10 plus years ago, my cholesterol was a little high. And I remember asking, so are you going to put me on a statin? Like it was no big deal. Like I didn't think twice about it because I didn't know anything that I know now. And, I think, wow, I've really done a 180. And ultimately, I've done this as much for myself as I have to help other people. My passion is really educating people, because if you don't know, you can't change it. If you choose not to, then that's on you. But at least you have the information to do it. And we have to be our own best advocate. No one's going to advocate for me the way I would for myself. And I think about, anytime I go to, any of my regular doctors that I've had for eons, and I still see them on occasion, for like the checkup, but the last time I went to my regular doctor, I told him what labs I wanted ordered. I was like, well, I have insurance, so they may as well pay for it. Otherwise, I'll just go order it myself. Yeah. But, he was just like, okay. Oh, okay. And there were things that I talked to him about that he didn't know. And I'm like,
because they're not educated in that. They're educated really in medication is what I understand, unless they then go off to be like a surgeon or do their
yeah.
And we need medical doctors. We need medical doctors but we need to have other people that are helping us. Like,
well, it's not their fault. I mean, ultimately they went to school. These are people who genuinely want to help other people. They went to school with the best of intentions, 9 times out of 10, to help others. And, they did their studies and they were taught this is how you do things. And then once you get stuck in the insurance model, you have to see somebody every 10 minutes in order to make a decent living. You have to follow these rules and do these things. And they often don't have time to study anything else or to investigate another route because, they're worked to death through the insurance system. And most of these people end up having families and things like that. And they want to spend time with their kids. They want to go do something fun. They want to get outside of work and, enjoy life. And you can't blame them. So they typically aren't exposed unless a family member or something happens, to themselves where they think, all right, well, I'm dealing with this and I don't know how to do whatever. Or I've tried the traditional route and I didn't feel better. So typically anybody who's a medical doctor that has gone that route has a personal story that has gotten them there.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank goodness for that, right? Thank goodness for personal stories, because there is that double-edged sword to it, right?
Yeah.
That, there's always such incredible goodness that comes from troubled times, right?
Right.
That's what I found out anyway.
Oh, yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
You're in it, but when you come on the other side, you're like, okay, I see, the big growth that happens through that stuff. We're not supposed to just be here. It sketches us so we learn, I believe, right?
We all have our purposes.
We do, yeah. So when somebody calls you, what is your protocol? Like, how, if someone was to contact you, what would they be expecting? Like, do you know what I mean? Because sometimes I think that people tend to not, because they're kind of, then they don't know. Well, if I call them, maybe I don't have to know all this, or maybe I'm going to, right? So what would somebody experience if they were to be in contact with you?
So typically, I can do like a discovery call with somebody, 15, 20 minutes and just kind of If they're not sure about what I do or whatever, spend a few minutes to explain that to them and what that looks like if they want to work with somebody like myself. And then if they want to move forward, then I do a consultation. And if they have recent labs like a CBC or metabolic panel, like the basic stuff they would get from their doctor, I will then translate those labs from functional to optimal ranges and get that consultation is usually about 90 minutes to 2 hours, and which is something that you don't get with a doctor. And I want to know their health history. I want to know what they've been through. I want to know how they feel, what their symptoms are like, what they eat. I want to know all of that stuff, because the more information I get, the easier it is for me to help them. And, once I translate their labs, I can look at the low hanging fruit. I can usually see, if there's, an issue with low stomach acid, or if there's a vitamin deficiency, there's things like that I can see. So I want to start with the low hanging fruit, tell them what needs to be worked on in that arena. And sometimes they can start to see improvement that way, before we really get into anything else. But I find a lot of times a detox or a cleanse is necessary. Parasites are pervasive, which is something that a lot of people don't realize. I've been to a third world country, doesn't matter. They're everywhere. And, we're exposed to when we eat healthy, because, they're in the soil and things like that. And a lot of times they will start off as a symbiotic relationship in the body. But when we're exposed to things like heavy metals and different viruses and toxins and things like that, they actually will kind of sop those up and eat them. But, like everything else that is living, it will multiply and everything poops. So you have those things in the body, and they will, they become more pervasive, and we need to get rid of them, and we need to kill off, as many of those bugs as we can, and then sop up the toxins that are being released by them. Because there have been instances, I haven't had this happen, but I know of people who have, where you start to kill off parasites and somebody breaks out in shingles because it was holding on to that virus. So, you want to make sure that you're doing the right binders and you're taking the right things to shuttle all that out of the body as safely as possible. And then, if it's necessary, you can run labs to find out what toxins are in the body, and that will help you kind of guide what type of detox you need to do. Because there's toxin panels, you can see phthalates and plastics and different VOCs and all sorts of things that you can find out if they're in the body. So, it's basically kind of, the consultation will go over the low hanging fruit and what I think we need to do to move forward. And I tell them, this is what I would recommend for you. This is how long of a program I think we should do. This is what it looks like. And that, varies based on, if someone feels generally well, or if they have if they have chronic issues and they feel generally unwell. And then basically I move through that stuff as quick as their body will allow. There's no sense in holding back on something if they feel good. You know what I mean? Let's get through this and let's push through and be done. But there's also sometimes people that you have to microdose things with, because, they just generally don't feel well on a daily basis. So you have to move slowly, because if you kill off too much at one time, they're not going to feel good.
Well, and I think that for myself and our home, and I know under, chronic stress or whatever that we've been under, there's lots of, and the youngest one's in school now, in kindergarten. So she is bringing home all kinds of great things for us. But it feels like it did with all of my children. We're getting sick all the time. It's like, oh my goodness, right? And it's like it goes through the house and it goes through the house again, and it's frustrating, right? And yeah. I know that if you're under stress, then your immune system is lower because you're in the fight or flight and right. And so yeah. So
100%. Yeah, and I have so. People that have never been here, they're like, wow, you have a lot of supplements, but I literally have something for everything. And so I have supplements, if you eat something bad and you think you've got food poisoning, you could take this. If your immune system's a little wonky, you could take this. If you need a pre-workout, you could take this. You need a little energy, but you don't want caffeine, you could take this. So I have all sorts of, things here, but, I mentioned earlier, my boyfriend is sick. He's upstairs and, I was pumping him full of all sorts of,
what's his name? We got to sing him happy birthday.
Yeah. Reggie. Yeah. It's his birthday and he doesn't feel good, but, yeah. So, but that's the whole thing is, boosting the body, my goal is to help people optimize. I mean, we want to feel good. You don't think about your health until you don't have it. And, there's things that I take on a daily basis just to make sure that my levels are good because, there's certain things that we burn through faster than others when we're under stress. And so, I just think it's important to know what to take and when to take it. And there's certain things that, I'll take for a month or two at a time, and then I go off of them. I don't think you need to take everything all the time. And you really don't want to. Ideally, you're going to get what you need from whole foods. But our food supply is not what it used to be. Our soil isn't what it used to be. And it's harder and harder to get those things. There have been studies that have shown you can have organic celery from 3 different parts of the United States, and the mineral and vitamin content of those things varies wildly in those 3 different samples because of the soil. So it's hard to really know. And so I think that it's foolish to rely entirely on just our food. However, that should be step 1 and the biggest step. And that's where we really need to begin that process, because if we're putting garbage in, we're going to get garbage out.
Yeah. Totally agree. Well, I think, as with all of my podcasts, I need to be a client. That's incredible information. I'm just thinking when you're talking about the cleanse, right? How many times people go and pick up a cleanse from the health food store, right?
Yeah,
we don't know what we're cleansing, right? So I'm just thinking what you're saying right now, right? So I think that having somebody guide you through. I think that there's just not. I think that people don't realize that there's people like you out there. Like I thought, you know what I mean? Because it's like, where do you really find them? And especially when I love all this stuff and I, but it's still there. It's not like it's readily available and in the mainstream. It's like, you've got to be talking to somebody and then they share with you that they have had this experience, right?
Yeah.
And
they're not going to have somebody like me on the Today Show. You know what I mean? They don't want somebody like me on there blowing things open. So, you're
going to lower the drug sales, girl.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at who sponsors that stuff, every other commercial is sponsored by Pfizer. Well, they want, to me, as far as they're concerned. So, I mean, it is what it is, but, and everybody needs to be on their own journey. And, if somebody tried to tell me all this stuff 10 years ago, I'd be like, whatever. But, it's a journey, and everybody has to get there in their own way. And, if they get there, great. And if they don't, that's okay too. Maybe that just wasn't for them. And, I'm willing to help, as many people as I can, because I think that some of this knowledge is hard to find. And I've spent years and years and years, looking at this stuff. And, during the pandemic, when things were shut down, it was funny. Like I would just be like on my computer all day, because I'm like, well, I can't go anywhere. I'm just going to like research more and do this education and, talk to this doctor and And so, it was like drinking from a fire hose, like everything just like, more and more and more, but I love it. And, it's really just so important. If I spend another hour in education and, a couple months or years down the road, it helps me give one more person that aha moment that's going to make them change a habit or change something in their life that's going to make them better. Well, that was worth it.
I'm with you. If there's one person that watches our podcast today that hears this and gets you right, our job is done, right? To me, that is just the biggest gift ever, because that's what happened to me. I heard Joe Dispenza, and I think, along with other people and things, that has saved my life, and breath and breathing and the meditative learning and how all that works, and phenomenal, right? Just phenomenal how we operate.
Yeah, that's just another testament to how powerful the body is.
Oh, goodness. I have so learned that. And I think many of us have through, I don't know, just the way that this whole last pandemic thing, the fear and if that's going to kill you quicker than than anything, than anyway, that's my thoughts. But
yeah, fear is a dangerous emotion, and we all have it sometimes. It's hard not to, because self-preservation and all of that stuff. But sometimes it's, take a step back, take a deep breath, and dissect what it is you're fearful of. Like, why are you afraid? And, can you do anything about it? What can you change? And,
change your thoughts, change your life.
yeah. And then just move on, so.
Yeah, it's incredible. And there's so, like you said, there's just so many simple things too, right? That you can do to just sort of get yourself on your way. You don't need to, jump in and do like, big expensive blah 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 things. It's all just kind of just getting started, right? But
yeah, and the best thing you can do, drink the purest source of water that you can find. That is number one. Every cell in our body needs hydration. And then eat the best quality food you can afford. Get good, solid, restful sleep as much as possible. Get rid of the blue light and all that stuff in the bedroom. Your most restorative sleep happens between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. If you can be asleep during that time, that's typically when you'll get your deepest sleep. And there are certain things in the body that only happen when you're asleep. And so sleep is important. And as much as I'm a workout person and I see people in the gym every day, if it comes down to, I didn't get any sleep, but I need some sleep or I'm going to work out, take the sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that has really plagued me over these last bunch of years is the sleep. It's, and I think, you get into the menopause and it's like, I'm awake every hour and a half, and so there's not that restorative sleep going on. And so hence, me needing to get on the program so that I can heal that because it is really powerful, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And that's something that has been, underestimated for a very long time. I feel like it's becoming a little bit more to the forefront in the last few years, but it's something that has been very much underestimated. And, when I was younger, I didn't sleep. Who cares about sleep? You know what I mean? I'd be out, and I never drink, but I would just be out because, it's social, you're out, you're young. But now, my boyfriend makes fun of me because I'm like, it's 8:00. I want to go to bed. He's like, it's 8:00. Yeah. But I'm tired. I get up early. My dog's 14. I'm, dealing with her. But sleep is very, very important to me. And it's something that I do not want to compromise on because I know the effect it can have on my health.
Yeah. Well, this was a great conversation. It was really, really awesome to chat with you. And I think that I would like to hook up with you and do get some start doing some cleanse and just have that motivation as to kind of getting started. I'm going to this thing and I'm going back there at the end of May, but I know that I'm not on target as much as I could be for myself. So
yeah, and it's fun.
I look forward to chat with you some more.
Yeah, when you see things come out of your body that are not supposed to be there, you're like, oh wow. And it's just,
that when you right there is enough to make me want to give you a call. Oh, that just is gross, right? But I know that what you're saying is so true because I mean I've had friends that have had experiences and it's that have shared that kind of stuff, but not really realizing that we're all kind of in that situation.
Yeah, we are. And it's nothing, so people get ashamed or embarrassed about it. And it's just real life anymore. Even if you're trying to eat healthy, think about sushi. It's raw, all the veggies and things that are raw, or things that are undercooked, that they may not make us sick, sometimes they do, but that doesn't mean that when we feel better, that everything that was in it is gone. So, it just, we deworm our pets, right?
Yeah.
We do that for our dogs and our cats. So why aren't we doing it?
Because we don't know. We're not aware. We're just not aware. It's not in the mainstream, but we're bringing it there. We're bringing that knowledge there. You are a wealth of knowledge. I really, really appreciate this chat with you today.
Thank you. I so enjoyed meeting you and talking with you also.
And I look forward to doing this again down the road with you. Do you have any books out? Have you written anything?
No, I don't have the attention span to write things. I don't think like that, but it's something that I've kind of tossed around a little bit, like an ebook. But I don't know. I don't know that I have the fortitude for.
You can always support it. Somebody else can write it out for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's true. Not a bad idea.
Yeah, because you've got some incredible information to share.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Courtney Ross, you are awesome. Have a good rest of your day. And I hope that you get some sunshine there in Cincinnati. WKRP in Cincinnati. That's the only reason I know.
I'm in Cleveland. I'm farther north.
Oh, you're farther north. Oh, you're Cleveland, right? Was it there? Oh, that's what I thought, Cincinnati, when you said that. Okay. And yeah, I'll have, that's kind of scary, that whole trade thing. You're living right by that. Is that getting cleaned up now?
The fake government cleanup, yes. Is it really getting cleaned up the way it's supposed to be? No.
No, I don't know that it ever really does, right? Yikes. Well, be well.
Thank you.
Well. And keep everybody else out there well.
I'll try.
Okay, Courtney. Take care.